All right, if you guys have been following my 80-day obsession journey, we just started week 8, which is absolutely insane. 7 weeks have flown by. And I started thinking about something that Autumn said today, is that progress, oh crap, I can't remember what she said. She said something about progress takes time. And that is the truth, is that we get so impatient and we're so used to things on demand, that, you know, phones aren't working fast enough, if people aren't moving fast enough, which I am very guilty of that. I'm a fast-paced person, so I want things now. And the biggest thing too is that we have the comparison game going on because of good old social media. We see people that don't always share the good, the bad, and the ugly. They only share the good. And so we are 7 weeks into this program. And there have been people in the group who've had amazing results and then other ones who've taken time. And I am a firm believer, just from using our products and completing like 20 some odd programs over the last 5.5 years, that there's a pattern that a lot of people will see quick results in the beginning, and then other people will see results towards the end once they built a base. And this is, a term that I've learned from Autumn, and I've learned so much being part of this group as we're helping her develop this program, is that there's bio-individuality, that everybody is different. Everybody has different factors going on in their life, and different things that really have a big impact on their results. And so when I started my journey in the very beginning, I saw results just like that. Like, I lost the pant size, I was seeing muscles like in my abs and my legs within 13 days. That's really how it evolved, that I ended up finding my passion and becoming a coach. But then I was expecting the results to keep happening like that, and they slowed down, but then they were slow and steady. And at the end of the 90 days of P90X, I had really amazing results. I found that in this program that I really haven't seen, I've lost 4 pounds, and it honestly fluctuates, and it's something that we've learned from Autumn as well, depending on how we're lifting, because sometimes some of the workouts we're doing, depending on the week, we're doing 2 sets of 10, and then we're doing the maxing out on the workout, or we're doing 1 round and then going back and doing another round. Other times we're doing 3 sets of 10, or today we did 2 sets of 15. And depending on how we're lifting, we create more blood volume in our body, and that can have a big impact on the scale. So I have learned more than anything not to rely on the scale, because the scale's a big fat liar. But I've been tracking my inches, and I've been tracking on these sheets the weights that I'm lifting, and my weights are going up. Today, one of the workouts that I did, I started off with a 20-pound weight, and I was doing 35. And to be quite honest, I could have done about 40 or 45. But I've lost 17 and a half inches, and I've lost 6.5 inches off my waist. And, I was struggling with my weight. I was thinking it might be my medication. I was thinking it was all these different things. But I still thought I was doing well. I was eating healthy. And it wasn't until we started this group and there was like a magnifying glass on what we're doing, and I was tracking everything I was doing, and I was staying accountable, did I realize that I really wasn't being as strict as I was. And that's something that we've talked about in our group with the test group participants, is that we have a couple days throughout the program where basically you're able to eat a little bit differently to restore the glycogen in your body, because we've been working at a deficit and we needed to replace that. And so one of the things is that we could replace a serving of fruit with 4 ounces of juice. And like Autumn says, we need to be very careful, because sometimes that you need to know what your triggers are. That some people will be like, oh, I'm gonna do this all the time, and that's kind of how I was. Like, it's just this one time I'm gonna eat some popcorn at the movies, and then it's like, oh, well, that was fun, let's go back the next week. And the next thing you know, it's like 4 weekends in a row of going to the movies eating popcorn. Those little decisions that you make, and this goes for anything outside of health or fitness or nutrition, is that those little things that you do that you don't think about at the time are going to add up to a result, and it's either going to be a good result or a bad result. And it really depends on what you want. If you want to get 50% of the results, then put in 50% of the work. It just depends. But I realized that I had been slowly getting off track with my nutrition, and it's something that I had been doing because The first year of my sobriety was relatively easy. The second year has been very tough on so many levels. And I noticed that, I think if anybody knows, when you can pick up or drop a habit really quickly, but usually one is replaced with the other. So you have to be careful that you don't replace one vice with another vice that's not going to be productive. And so I realized that I was really an emotional eater, and once I got alcohol out of my life, then the emotional eating became even more intense. And I've actually been reading this book called The Binge Code, and it really goes a lot in line with what I have been studying about my brain, about my body's response to stress, and then also what I've been learning through personal development, through Tony Robbins, about how the patterns that we have need to be interrupted, and they need to be replaced with good patterns. And something that I wanted to share with you is that she talks about this Zen 10 technique, is what she calls it. And it's something like Tony Robbins talks about, is that we often have bad habits, which are patterns, and in order to get rid of the pattern, you have to interrupt the pattern, and then you have to replace it with a different pattern. You have to be careful and be very mindful and aware of what you're doing, because like I said, that can be replaced with another bad habit. A lot of times people will overcompensate and turn to something else. So she talks about this Zen 10 technique, and it literally could be named anything, but this is something she's done, she's developed through 10 years of working with people who have emotional eating, binge eating disorders. And I know that, 10 years in a field, that's really when you can be considered an expert. So I really consider her tips and her advice and this practice as something that's really going to work, and it goes in line with what Tony talks about. And if you don't think that this is real, think about if you're a parent and you have a child that's throwing a freaking tantrum from hell. Like, I got kids, they've had that happen, and then you're like, Jesus, no matter what you do, you can't get them to stop. You don't want to give in, but then you're like, shit, I'm just gonna tickle them or make fun of them, and the next thing you know, they're like trying to cry and trying to throw a tantrum, but then they start laughing, and then you move on to something else, and then they're back on track, and they're not so focused on that tantrum for whatever reason it was. So it's basically what you're doing is you're interrupting the pattern. So she talks about the Zen 10 technique, that whenever you notice a binge or a emotional eating binge coming on, and you usually can feel it. Or if you feel like, for me, I have mental illness, and I have these waves of sadness, waves of loneliness, waves of anxiety, of like my chest gets tight, I just feel uneasy, uncomfortable, and you can sense those things. And if you really stop and you're aware of what's going on, if those are the things that lead up to you going and eating a gallon of ice cream, stuffing a handful of Oreos, and I say this because I've done it, then you check yourself and know that these are patterns, and every pattern has something that leads up to it, and there's always a source, and you can't just be like, I'm gonna stop overeating, God, I'm so stupid. You have to be aware of it and figure out where it began and get rid of it. But it doesn't just happen overnight. So this Zen 10 technique is something that she suggested. She said, whenever you're noticing a binge, in that moment, say to yourself, Zen 10. Again, you can use whatever word you want whenever you're trying to get rid of some sort of behavior you're trying to change about yourself. So that this phrase, Zen 10, reminds you of the change you're wanting to do, is to break this pattern. This will snap you out of the autopilot, which is the autopilot is that so many things we just do because it's a pattern that's been ingrained in us. It feels natural, even if we don't like it. So then you give yourself 10 minutes before you act on your urges. By giving yourself a buffer of 10 minutes, you help create a space between your urges and your response. In that space, you allow the binge urge to rise and fall and do whatever it wishes, but you take no action having a binge. And this is supported by science. I've been studying a lot about the brain and how it works. And so I will read you this if you're somebody that wants proof or is fascinated by that like I am. It says, research by neuroscience. Scientists prove that even a 10-minute wait can drastically reduce the brain's response to a craving. Binge urges are not constant. They ebb and flow in waves. By delaying 10 minutes, you give yourself the opportunity to see if the urge will pass. This is especially true if the binge urge triggered your fight or flight response. It may take a good 10 minutes or longer for you to start to feel normal again as your body needs time to flush all the stress hormones that were activated. If you don't understand what fight or flight response is, it's something I learned 2 years ago when I went into the mental health facility that I voluntarily checked myself into. I learned that our brain is really an old machine, something that Tony talks about, that is really only designed to help us survive something that is life or death. Our heart, I believe, is this what connects us where there's emotion involved, but our brain, there's no emotion. It's just, whatever you see that causes pain or could cause injury, your brain will do anything to get you to avoid it. And so when you have stress, then like your adrenal glands, and you probably have heard this phrase because I've been really looking into it. It's adrenal gland, adrenal fatigue, adrenal, what is the other one? I don't know. There's like adrenal. Your adrenal glands are under stress. So basically, they're what really creates, and regulates your hormones. And so when you feel stress, there's, our whole body is connected, and it sends a message to release cortisol, which is a stress hormone. When the cortisol is released, there's a response to it, and that's what I'm saying. Everything is connected to your brain, and your whole body is literally goes into response. And so you start craving sugars, carbs, and this is an archaic thing that if you centuries ago were being attacked by, I don't know, some predator, you go into fight or flight response. Your body goes in, the cortisol hits, you do whatever it takes, you fuel yourself up with foods that are going to sustain you so that you can outrun a mountain lion, outrun whatever's trying to kill you. And so that a lot of times is something that people are experiencing when you have stress. And stress can be caused from just feeling like a binge urge is coming on, and that creates it. It can be stress over finances, stress over your kids, stress over sometimes I stress over nothing. And those things will happen, and that will prevent you from losing weight. It will create habits where you're eating crappy foods, and so you have to be aware of this. So I've been really, really aware of this, and that's one thing that Autumn was talking about too, is that if you're under stress, you can see that layer of belly fat that comes right here in this area that's put on, and that is a protective thing. It's all comes from our brain trying to protect us. So anyways, I thought that was interesting, and it goes really hand in hand with the book that I'm reading, and I highly recommend you guys Google or go to YouTube and type in The 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins. I'm reading that book. I've been applying it. It's really awesome. And she's talking about how so many people are talking about how they want to do this. They have the reasons why they want to do it, but they can't make themselves do it. And you can think about it all day long, but you need to have something that launches you into action. And that's something that she kind of stumbled upon on accident, and it's been something that's really helped her for I think the last 5 years, and helped thousands and thousands and thousands of people. And it's something that too, that as she has also done research of the brain, is that it does something about activating the frontal cortex or something. I just learned about this today, so I don't remember the exact words, but it triggers something in your brain when you count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you get yourself in a pattern of not overthinking a decision, not letting your emotions get involved, not letting fear set in, not letting doubt creep in, but you just go into action and you just do it. And that is something that is so important. And so once you do that, you're starting this pattern like I was talking about earlier, and then that will get you out of the habit of worrying, overthinking things, letting fear take over. So I really urge you guys to watch it. It's like a 15-minute TED Talk. Those things are really short, where you can hear what she talks about. And if you want, get her book on Audible or buy the book, but it's been really helpful. And if you feel like you're being held back in life because you're not making the decisions you need to, then you need to reach out and find the tools or find the people that are going to help you get this done. So anyways, hope this has been helpful. We just finished day 45 of 80-Day Obsession. I'm down 4 pounds, 17 and 3/4 inches, and I'm loving it. And my results are really starting to show now in this last phase. I can't believe we're on the last week of month 2. I know big things are going to happen for me and my body in month 3, now that I've built the base, built the strength physically and mentally, and now that Autumn's going to bump it up and change it and challenge us even more in month 3.